Well, I spoke earlier about UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's tough crackdown on immigration and why we must follow suit here. Joining me now for more on this is MacroBusiness Chief Economist Leith van Onselen. Leith, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me. Keir Starmer says the UK is becoming an island of strangers and that immigrants should learn to speak English. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it is. Honestly, I think anybody who comes to any country should learn the norms of that country. So England is obviously a English-speaking nation, so it should be incumbent on people when they go to England to speak English. And I'd say the same for an Australian going to Denmark or any other nation or Japan. If you move somewhere, you should learn the customs of that country and the language of that country.
Yeah, I totally agree. I absolutely agree on that basis. I want to talk more about this immigration crackdown, though. What can Australia learn from what he is actually endeavouring to do over there, or what he says he will do?
Yeah, so what Keir Starmer said is he's basically said that the UK's population growth has been far too high post-pandemic, which is absolutely correct. The UK, much like Australia and Canada, experienced an absolute ginormous immigration surge. And that's put huge pressure on housing, on infrastructure, on livability, all those sorts of things, all the same stuff we have here in Canada. And he simply wants to get the numbers down. He wants to improve the quality. He wants to increase English and language proficiency, reduce student numbers, make sure they're more genuine students. All the sorts of policies that Australia should be looking at. Basically, he wants to aim for a lower number, but of higher quality migrants. And I think that's really what Australia should be doing, is what Canada should be doing. We should be going for quality over quantity.
Yeah, and I also said earlier, if Susan Lee wants to differentiate from Labor, I honestly think that immigration is it, because the Coalition took a policy to the last election, but they didn't really prosecute it.
Absolutely, and it was also all over the shop. So there was lots of carve-outs. It was wishy-washy. The ministers couldn't agree. So one moment, one minister would say, "Oh, we're going to get net overseas migration down to this," and then they contradict themselves. It was really wishy-washy. I think the overall approach to get numbers down is obviously correct. Australia's cities can't cope with these huge immigration flows. The housing market can't cope. We can't build enough infrastructure. Livability is getting trashed, and so is productivity in Australia. So we need to get the numbers down, but the focus should be on bringing in a significantly smaller number of very high quality migrants. And the way you do that is you obviously clean up the student migration trade. So you increase barriers to entry. So, students should have to sit, examinations before they come to make sure they're up to scratch. They should have to, we should also lift English language proficiency and also financial requirements and all those sorts of things. But we should also significantly increase the amount of money that skilled migrants need to earn before they come to Australia. So that way we actually get very high skilled migrants that also high paid and obviously pay a lot of taxes. Because at the moment, we're actually getting a lot of low skilled migration and the numbers are just too high and we can't cope.
What do you make of the data showing that Melbourne will be the size of New York City by 2050 with 9 million people? I mean, where are we going to put all these people?
Yeah, and that is absolutely absurd. So when you think about it, it took Melbourne 170 years to get to 3.5 million people at the turn of the century. Since then, we've added about 2 million people, and the plan is to add another 3.5 million people by 2050. So we're going to add, it took us 170 years to add 3.5 million people. We're going to magically add that amount again by 2050. Like, this is just banana stuff. And Melbourne will be, nearly triple the size in 2050 that it was in the year 2000. I mean, these numbers just do not make sense. I live in Melbourne, and you can see the deterioration in our living standards firsthand. The congestion is bananas, and the quality of housing's gone down. And obviously, the state government is drowning in debt because it cannot build the infrastructure to keep up with the population growth. So, we are an absolute financial basket case down here in Melbourne, and the solution just seems to be importing more and more people, and just to make all the problems worse.
You're right, it is absolutely ridiculous. I want to ask you about this new data as well that shows a record 1.1 million international students were enrolled in Australia at the end of last year. Leith, Labor keeps claiming that it has brought down international student numbers, but surely that does not add up, especially given that this data shows that the intake is higher than what it was at its peak pre-pandemic.
Yeah, it's actually not just students though, Danica, it's also graduate visas. So graduate visas are more than double what they were in 2019, and that was a peak back then. So, we've got record numbers of graduate visas on issue. We've got record number of international student enrolments. We've also got record number of bridging visas because a lot of students are refusing to go home once their visa expires. They're appealing to the Ministry of Review Tribunal, and then they just get issued a bridging visa, which allows them to remain in Australia, work, etc., while it takes years for their case to go through the Ministry of Review Tribunal. So, we've got record student numbers, record graduate visa numbers, and record bridging visas. This, the whole notion that they're bringing numbers under control just does not, add up.
Before we let you go, Leith, a rates decision is due to be handed down next week. What are you expecting?
Oh, look, I think economists unanimously think there's going to be a 0.25% cut. What happens after then, though, is a little bit, iffy. So, just after President Trump announced his Liberation Day tariffs, obviously the markets fell. There was a lot of panic, and financial markets were tipping 5 rate cuts this year. They've now pared those back to 3 rate cuts because obviously markets are stabilised. The tariffs aren't as bad as everyone expected. So, I think we certainly will get more rate cuts this year. We'll certainly get one next week. But it's just whether, it ends up being a series of deep cuts or just this gradual, a few cuts by the end of the year.
Leith van Onselen, good to speak with you. Thank you for joining me as always. Appreciate it.